Sonic Advance is owned by SEGA and Sonic Team. Even though this game is rated E for everyone, the commentary in this recording may contain mature phrasings and ideas. So, as always, viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back, everybody, to the McGurganatorZX Let's Play of Sonic Advance. Today, we are playing as everybody's favorite red enchilada, Knuckles the Echidna. Kind of a fun issue. Again! Recording this part stunk. Because I got a game over and I wanted to get a more complete recording. Because it's not very fun getting broken segments, you know, halfway through the game. Because I'm bad with Knuckles. Now, again, since all the characters share a very similar run speed, it's important to note that Knuckles is the only character that can glide. It's not the fastest thing in the world, which you'll probably see coming up, but it allows him to stick onto walls and ultimately climb. Now, the only reason I don't enjoy playing as Knuckles is because the glide isn't as fast as Tails' fly. Climbing walls is very slow because in this game there's no way to speed it up. His attack buttons change to punches, which are, again, the B attacks are useful for chewing through bosses occasionally, but not much else, which I find very annoying, actually. So, if you see me going through these stages faster than I normally would, it's only because I've kind of learned the level geometry by this point. Of course, Knuckles has basically all of his abilities that he had in Sonic 3. He can still do the roll, he can still do the spin dash. His glide's decent, his climbing animation works. I don't remember if he had the attack combo in Sonic 3, but in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, he had the, 2 especially, he had the 2 jabs into the uppercut from a standing spot. See, I'm sort of demonstrating the glide there. You can use a, if you're gliding onto the wall and you hit the jump button, you'll come off at a more horizontal angle. So it sort of allows you to do quick wall jumps, which is interesting, I mean, but it's useful in a couple of scenarios. Not amazingly a lot of them. Which, I mean, it's fine. If you know how to use the mechanic, it's good. After you come off of a glide, you sort of get into this falling animation where you can't really do anything, and you suffer what's known to gamers as landing lag. I believe you can jump after landing and it'll help mitigate this. You can also duck, and it does the same thing. But see, as I demonstrate, these punch attacks are really good, and because they move Knuckles forward on a moving boss such as this, it allows you to sort of clip through the enemy when it's in its hurt phase. Of course, signified by the boss character flashing white. But again, ultimately, the combo attack isn't really useful for Knuckles, outside of a couple of bosses. Again, mainly the Casino Paradise boss, because of how the tubes are handled with hitboxes. I'd say Secret Base is a bit kinder to Knuckles than any of the other stages, because it's a very horizontal level, and if you can get enough air, it allows you to glide across. Same with Casino Paradise, and to a lesser extent, and Ice Mountain? I'm trying to remember the name of the stage, and it's kind of blanking on me. But something I've always disliked about this game, because I've had very interesting topics to talk about, more or less, on this game about mechanics, is that these types of games are never really mechanically simple. That to any Sonic game, there are things that are complex. There's stuff like spin dashing and jumping off an incline to get a greater jump height, or to launch yourself as far as you can. There's momentum bouncing, which, using certain maneuvers, allows you to jump back up rather high and save yourself the time, or bounce off of an object and not have to worry about everything. something I will not be doing is collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds on screen, because screw that. Because that'd be a lot of save states, and let's be frank, we don't want to... I don't want to bog you down with all the save states, because Chaos Emeralds are annoying in this game. You have to jump off of a spring to a special spring, mind you, that you have to get to in a very specific part of the level. And I don't like that aspect of this game. I find it very annoying to try to search them out and then to try to complete the special stage, which you may not do on your first try, so that may lead you to restarting the level. And then once you collect the Chaos Emerald, you actually have to complete the level, some of which have boss enemies on them. Which, yeah, I understand that, I mean, it's Chaos Emeralds and it's special stages, but you really have to earn. In a game with autosave functionality just about, you can't really autosave. It's just a small foible that bugs me, that in a game where you unlock the final stage using Chaos Emeralds, that once you collect a Chaos Emerald, it doesn't autosave. You have to get to the end of the stage, because that's where the autosaving truly takes place, which is annoying. It's just an early foible of these games. It just adds the level of challenge, meaning that you sort of have to earn your ending. Which, that part I don't like. I mean, yeah, I like the fact that you work towards the end of a game, but when it's a Sonic game and you're unlocking one level after collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds, yeah, no. At least this game doesn't handle it like Sonic Advance 2, where in this game you can collect Chaos Emeralds as any character, and as long as you complete the stage, you have the Chaos Emerald. It's very Sonic Heroes about it. But in Sonic Advance 2, every character has their own Chaos Emerald count. It's archaic and it's dumb. And yeah, it unlocks features, but it's ultimately in my eyes, useless. This boss is sort of made easier by gliding, because you can damage the boss in a glide and you can bounce off of them, depending on where you hit them, in what point of your glide, etc. And Knuckles makes chump change out of this guy, much as in the same fashion that Tails does, which is nice. It's actually very refreshing. But back to the Chaos Emerald tangent, I don't like the fact that in Sonic Advance 2 you have to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, as all of the characters to unlock all of the content. It's just, you know, you do that for sound tests, you do that for the Chow Garden, you do that for an extra character, you do that for the final boss battle, but only if you're Sonic. It's backwards. And then Sonic Advance 3 handles it a bit differently, where whatchamacallit, you have to find all these Chow hidden in a stage, but once you do, a key is just randomly in a level. Or a key is in a specific spot in a level, I believe each level having a different spawn location of said key. And then you play the special stage in the overworld, which is a bit more efficient. It's that right level of, you're rewarded for playing well, but yet there's still a little bit of challenge. The special stages in that game are a little bit more difficult, so yeah. If you're wondering what I'm going to do for Sonic Advance 2, I'm not collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds, if that's what you're thinking. Because I don't like the special stage in that game. I think it's rather unfair, especially in how you get to it. Because it's a set of 5 special rings that you have to find in the level. And if you don't, you're screwed. I don't like that. Like, if it's one object that you can track and that you can plot on a map, yeah, I think that's fair. Or if it's like 10 Chow that once you collect, you don't have to worry about finding them again, and you just have to get a key. In levels that are thankfully really good, I'm fine with that. I just don't like the fact that it's like, oh, you have to collect these 5 MacGuffins, and then if you do, you have a chance at playing the special stage. Not the fact that it's like, oh, you could just challenge the special stage whenever you want. It's dumb. Whew. That was about 5 minutes of a Chaos Emerald tangent. I apologize because, although I do have my opinions, people may not share that, so this isn't really like an official question of the day, but if you are out there in the ether and you want to write something about this game, what's your favorite special stage format? Like, is it the Sonic 1 weird maze sort of halfway pinball levels? Is it the Sonic 2 half pipe? Is it Sonic 3's red orb or blue orb? Orbs. Is it something like out of Sonic Heroes where it's, you know, where it's a higher speed sort of tube? Is it like this game where it's a snowboarding section which is ultimately 2 minutes long but very unforgiving? Is it like Sonic Advance 2's bullshit system? Is it like Sonic Advance 3's biplane flying segment? There's just a lot of special stage types, which I like. It's a variety, it's a spice of life, which is fun. You know, all the varied sort of special stages. Or is it even something like Sonic Rush's half pipe, or Sonic Rush Adventures, I think it's the Skidoo segment. I can't really remember, I haven't played that game yet. Which is odd. But there are a lot of special stages. So, too long, did not listen to this weird kid on the internet. What's your favorite special stage type? I can wait. Because I like this game's special stages because they're short, they're sweet, and the music is awesome. Although the Sonic 2 half pipes are immediately a guilty pleasure. Oh wait, I forgot Sonic CD's sort of pseudo 3D stuff, which is not, I don't think it's fun, and I don't think works as well in the Sonic format. So, jeez, an episode on special stages. I like it. Unfortunately, this is about the Knuckles playthrough, and once again, Knuckles' B attack, which is his punch combo, allows him to hit the boss through the pipes, because that is not, it doesn't block your hitbox. It's just sort of a thing. I don't know if that's programming or if it's mercy. So remember, if you have a B attack that can go through walls like that, you can do it. This is probably one of the better Knuckles stages because you can just glide through most of it, which is nice. And if you're able to take a top route that allows you to sort of skip level geometry, yeah! It's more apparent in the Act 2 of this zone that you're able to just skip so much more when you just find an area where you can just jump off and glide, which is nice. Knuckles also has an additional gimmick because this is really the only level where you have to worry about water. Knuckles has an additional gimmick of being able to float on the top of the water. This is more useful for the boss fight as you can stun him and then attack him, but it also helps him not immediately sink, so you can sort of plot out where you're gonna go and just sort of dive down, which is actually pretty cool. It's very sort of Sonic Adventure, or I should say Sonic Adventure 2, where Knuckles could do that originally. Instead of gliding underwater, he does the breaststroke, or front crawl, whichever you prefer to. I guess it's the front crawl. I'm not exactly sure, I'm not a swimming genius. But Knuckles does that. I believe he still has the same hitbox properties. I haven't really tested it because I don't want to get hurt underwater because that leaves you with so much empty time. I recommend though, when you're going up that sort of cliff face, that you, that you jump off at the last second so you don't have to go through a weird falling animation. To me, it's just sort of something I do. Ultimately, this is the worst underwater section in the game. I'm trying to remember if I do something really dumb, which is there. You have to hit that spring. Otherwise, you'll do what I did, and you'll make a monkey out of yourself. And although I like proving that dumb things happen in video games, because that's ultimately what I did in Smash Bros. With Falcon and the Dive, I also like showing off that I'm not terrible at video games. Because I'm not. I promise, I'm not terrible. I can get gooder. I just don't like to, or I like to show off sillier aspects. Because let's face it, you're never gonna, if you've played this game a million times, you're never gonna see this stuff. Or if you're on the fence about this game, you're never gonna see stuff like this. So, this way you can get the whole picture and you can find out, oh, well, what kind of bullshit knockback thing do I gotta avoid this time? And hopefully I'm doing a service to you all instead of a disservice. But now that we're on Act 2 of Ice Mountain Zone, it's, you're going to see me doing a lot of gliding, mainly because I can. Because I like being able to, oh, excuse me. Mainly because I like being able to skip a level and not have to deal with nonsense. I thought I could climb up that far. I guess I couldn't. But, Knuckles' climbing mechanic certainly does help under multiple scenarios. And, except when you're getting attacked by robot trout? Barracuda? I'm not exactly sure what those fish are. They sort of look like trout, though, so I will continue calling them trout. Anyways, I say anyways a lot. Wow, I need to cut that out of my system. But these ice blocks are made a little bit easier by you being able to sort of glide underwater. Although, the ability to actually ascend and swim is still, in my eye, more useful. And ultimately, when you're underwater and you see one of those little air pockets, it's generally my advice that you're going to want to get air, because running out of air underwater, as you'll see in a later part, is embarrassing. Yes, I do end up getting the Drowner ending to one of my lives in this game. But ultimately, the water on top of float is really helpful at this part, because you can just ignore all the stupid platform puzzles except for the last one, which is handy, to say the least. Anything that you can avoid in these games is useful. But yes, now you'll get to see me cheese the boss. Hopefully, unless I lost a life at this part. In which case, you're not going to see me cheese the boss. You're going to see me lose horribly, which is embarrassing to say the least. This is the third plus time I've fought this guy. So, I kind of want this guy out of my life. I don't want him anymore. I want him to kindly take the hint that he can leave. But yes, you can float on top of the water, and if you time your hits right, you can hit him and swim through him. I tried to dive down to get rings, and I believe that's going to bite me in a second with a errant sort of icicle stabbing me in the butt. Right there. Right there. So, now we gotta repeat the boss fight, and you're gonna see that a couple of times, that floating on top of the water isn't necessarily optimal, because the boss can just hit you whenever he wants. You know, you're never really safe in this boss fight unless you're playing as Tails or Amy, because the boss can just drop a icicle wherever he wants. It doesn't matter where you are. It just matters where he cares. See, but when he's flashing in that invincibility period, you can jump through him, which is fairly handy if you're playing as Tails or Knuckles, so that you don't suffer additional hits. Whew. But yes, if they're two icicles close together as such, you're gonna get hurt. And yes, here's the drowning music I talked about. And guess what happens? I get hit by the boss. You didn't think that would happen, now did ya? Ugh, this boss fight is all sorts of jank. This is my least favorite boss in the game, because the other ones, at least you can somewhat pattern them out. Not this one. No, this one you have to wait for the RNG to put an icicle where you need it. Ugh. I will not miss this boss fight when I am done with this game. But yes, hey look, it's the drowning music! Oh joy! Yeah, the boss killed me when he wanted to. That's the worst part about this boss fight, is that you lose when the boss wants you to lose. And you'll only win when the boss is feeling a bit generous. Which I don't like. I think that's archaic and dumb, because there's not a lot of control in this boss fight. There's just it's just reactionary. Which I think needs to stop happening in boss fights. It's one thing if you have to play defensively in a game centered around the mechanic, but in a game where boss fights can be wildly different, it's not fun having to, you know, do this stupid reactionary dance. Like, see, like so. I beat him on my 3rd try. That should have been the 1st try, but because this boss has so many RNG mechanics, no. No, I am done with this boss fight. Playing it as Amy in the next part, you're gonna see me just destroy this guy. Thank goodness I can actually move on to Angel Island Zone. Because it's a good zone. Although there are a lot of bottomless pits. Which is, unfortunately, the gimmick behind this level. I dislike it immensely. Any game that has to rely on bottomless pits in platforming it's not, in my eyes, good. Man, this is just the negative mechanics episode. New episode title: Part 3 Knuckles, the negative mechanics, or the Sonic Boom tapes, whichever you prefer. But, sheesh. If there's one thing I don't like in this game, it's bottomless pits. You know, other games like Shantae, it does it right because it tells you what pits you can't really go down because it has skulls at the bottom or it has some sort of label. Sonic Generations did this by giving you a little death animation graphic when you couldn't, you know, afford to drop down a pit because it would cost you one of your mans. And I don't think games with bottomless pit mechanics are necessarily handy in this sort of situation. Lives aren't even handy in this sort of situation, and that's only because you can continue from, you know, a stage after the one you directly complete because of autosave mechanics. I didn't really know what was going on with this part of the level. Again, this is one of the things about this game which I like, because you can get to a certain part of a level you haven't been to in a while. And it just sort of surprises you. Unfortunately, this Knuckles level takes me a while because I think I can do things that I can't. Which is stupid, to say the least. So, if you're in your monitors yelling at me saying, "Hey, do better," I'm sorry, I'm trying to get better at games, guys. I'm only human, I'm not a robot! I'm not. I can't be a robot because I am a human being. I am a human. I am a hummus. Those are some inside jokes for you there. Anyways, these this sort of rolling dial puzzle, not too difficult. These moving platforms aren't bad if you have some sort of glide or at least a way to extend your jump. A curious thing with the sand, if you glide in the sand, it has weird properties. You'll move a little bit faster because of how it works. It's kind of silly, but I love it. Just another sort of testament to why this game's sort of goofy, because it has all of these weird, bizarre mechanics to them. But you never know until you just sort of start messing around. That's the glory of these games. That you can just goof around and discover things that you didn't know. Which I think is a good mark of a game, because obviously I'm still learning things about it to this day. I'm not just complacently playing it in one sort of play style. I'm actually learning how more this game works and how different mechanics work, how specific parts of a hitbox works. It's very interesting to me how technical video games can be, but yet we just sort of write them off as, especially for Sonic games with the handheld series, always run right. Yes, while that's true, some of the slower-paced games have more interesting mechanics overall. So, before you just write this game off as another always hold right Sonic the Hedgehog whoa game, just be sure just to try it out. It's significantly cheaper buying a used copy or buying it on the Nintendo Wii U eShop than trying to get a new copy of this game, because I looked the other day because I was curious, and a new copy of Sonic Advance goes for about $300. Yeah, have fun spending money on a brand new Sonic game where you could just get a used cartridge and it still run absolutely perfect. So, speaking of odd sort of used titles, a thing I saw on the internet with a couple of people I talked to about video games with is that you know, the whole lamenting over trying to find a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, especially because I find that ultimately useless as an argument, because Xenoblade Chronicles X is going to be on the handheld, on the new 3DS, I should say. Not, yes, it is a handheld, but it's the new 3DS. And the Wii copy can be as low as anywhere from $70 to $90. And as I'm saying this, I should specify for a US game, because of how Nintendo's how Nintendo and how video games in general have handled region locking their media. Now, not only do I think region locking is sort of archaic in the day and age of the internet, but if you think about it, having a copy of one of those games be that much is kind of justified because of how the little US production, or US copies, I should say, for the game were ultimately brought, because of Nintendo of America, one way or another, meddling in the overseas importation and ultimately sale of the game. And people think it's like, oh, it's a shame that GameStop is over, you know, stating the value of this game. I think it should be worth more, honestly, for a Wii U American copy, because although the game was met to almost crazy amounts of acclaim in the US, it didn't have a lot of copies because of literally of executive meddling. And no, claiming that GameStop's marking up the prices for the game, ultimately not a good argument. Of course, in this fight, before I continue, the Knuckles versus Knuckles Ditto is kind of painful on him, because Robo Knuckles can block B attacks through use of the ducking sort of shield, and that's annoying. Ultimately, you can sort of break through it with the uppercut, but that requires 3 hits that move you forward into his full-body hitbox. Conversely, if he spin dashes at you, you can glide into him to sort of cancel it, which is really, really nice. But back to the topic of localizing Xenoblade and whatnot. It's sort of useless to complain where, yes, the game they tried to make the game sort of they tried to make it somewhat accessible to American audiences. It just didn't follow through very well. Again, executive meddling of the highest degree. And then when you complain about GameStop severely inflating the prices, you don't have the whole story because of Operation Rainfall, because, again, of the executive meddling by Nintendo of America. It's not ultimately a savory thing, how the economics behind that works. It is the one reason why I am less proud about the economics of video games, because developers seem to have a backward sense about how to bring games to the masses. But that's a topic for another video, I'm afraid. So when you get upset that you can't find a game that had a limited run, and you blame GameStop for prices being so increased and not fully getting the whole story, it's, you know, yes, you can blame GameStop for their unabashed wholesale markup. I get that. I get that GameStop marks up their games and you get very little value for actually bringing in a game that's widely considered amazing and semi-hard to find. But with GameStop, it's not really, you know, it's not wholly their fault, because there weren't a lot of copies that were brought to the US for Xenoblade Chronicles. It's like a older copy of a Pokemon game costing, you know, like a GBA game costing like the full $30–40 price tag, because frankly it's still relevant, because you can still, you know, because it's a collector's item, because it's no longer produced, because it has inherent value. You know, it's not, you know, it's not necessarily the fault of GameStop how the market goes. They're just a middleman in buying games. Unfortunately, they're one of the more financially powerful middlemen, but I don't think that should have an issue. They're one of the few nationwide chains that actually resells games. And if you go anywhere else, you're going to find somewhat of a similar price. And frankly, because that's how the market works. It's not just GameStop selling games for huge prices. Although they do that, they tend to overinflate how games are sold. Actually, I have a story about that one. I know I'm supposed to be playing a Sonic game during my post-commentary, but I've already talked about why I like and I dislike this zone to death. I've said it 2 times already. I don't think it needs to be said. And if you want to, just skip to the part in previous playthroughs where you can see and ultimately hear my opinions on Egg Rocket and the Cosmic Angel. But as a story for my idiotic GameStop experience, I got Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I played Marvel 2 when I was younger because we had a Fuddruckers. And that's the only local place where, you know, I could get my arcade fix. And yeah, it's the only place I could find locally where I could play arcade games. It was the only place where I could do something like that, and I found, you know, people who played Soul Calibur. Casually, admittedly, but I got some fun matches in. Found some people who played Marvel, who ate my face playing. I did not do well in Marvel 2, but I liked the game. I thought it was fun. I thought it was flashy. I liked how I could pick any combination of people. You know, even if they may not have been the best, you know, you can still make it work, because it's that kind of game. But when Marvel 3 came out, I was ecstatic. I saw it. I saw the trailers and whatnot, and I was a little skeptical. Because, hey, it's a new game, and it's something that I haven't seen a new game for in a decade. Yes, it took that long for Marvel 2 to have a sequel. But I got it. After a while it had been out, and I played the game. I found people to play with, local anyways. And I enjoyed it, and then I heard Ultimate came out a couple of months after I got the game. And if anybody knows Capcom's policies for making updates of a game, it had a bunch of new characters. It had more than what the DLC reported it had, more than you could unlock through Marvel 3. And it was being marketed as the definitive edition. So I go out, I look for the game, and I talk to them. It's just, hey, how much is this? And you know, I waited for a while because it's just, I haven't gotten my miles my money out of Marvel 3 yet. So when Ultimate Marvel 3 ultimately launched, or I was able to ultimately get it, I brought in my copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds. I brought it in, and they gave me $2 for it. Where I felt that was grossly unfair, because it was just an updated Marvel 3. Yeah, it had a lot of new characters, and yeah, there were a lot of increased mechanics and movesets for characters. I got that. I understood that, and I liked that. But the fact that you're charging full price for a game, and I can't bring in a previous version of the game and get an extended discount, that irked me. It wasn't that the game, and it also irked me that the game was a full price tag. So if you enjoy playing Marvel, have fun buying the game again. I felt that business model was really painful. I'm also a big Street Fighter fan. You know, I played Street Fighter 4. I enjoyed Street Fighter 4. I liked it a lot. I felt it was a very fun game mechanically. I felt it was worthwhile. So Super came out, and I never actually bought it. I played a friend's copy of it. And I borrowed it from him occasionally, and I generally enjoyed it. I felt it was a superior release. I felt that the amount of characters was worth, you know, potentially paying an extended price tag. And then, no, Super 4 Arcade Edition dropped. And it ultimately disappointed me. Because, why? You know, they added a couple of characters. You know, I thought Yun and Yang were cool to a point. Because that was before I sort of knew about Street Fighter 3 and who was in it. But that was kind of not worth it for me. And then Ultra Street Fighter 4 came out, and I just said no. You know, I want to play it eventually. I told myself I want to play it eventually, but unless I have a reason to play the game, I'm not going to. Yeah, I ultimately ended up dying during that. Ugh. Sorry about the pause and the weird disjointed commentary. Anyways, I did not, you know, I ended up getting a copy of Ultra Street Fighter 4 free for Steam. It's just not worth it for me. Because it's just sort of soulless and dead. Not soulless like, that was an unknowing reference. How about that? But, you know, games that do that, new versions, they should somewhat compensate you for you know, having a previous version for Marvel 3. For Ultimate Marvel 3. You know, if I had Marvel 3, they just should have said, hey, trade in this game and you'll get half off. I would have done that instantly. Instead, I got $2. Now, Street Fighter 4. Too many games. No, they would have to, you know, I had to get that game for free to even consider playing it. I mean, the Ultra variation of it. Thankfully, they don't have that with Sonic games. Although, the quality of said games is variable, to say the least. And many people consider these games to not have quality. To which I say, comes with the person. Whew. Rant over. Thankfully. So. I can't believe I've been through this stage how many times. And you'll see me go through it one more time because I gotta play the game as Amy. Which I'm actually fine with because now that I've sort of recorded it and gotten to it, I actually enjoy playing as Amy quite a bit. You know, I thought it'd be a much bigger slog than it actually is. Which, thankfully, I was proven wrong. And I'm happy about that, because if I can be proven wrong, my opinions can change and ultimately grow. Unfortunately, this spring part can just outright go not exist. Because you have to hit the spring at a specific part, and you have to jump on top of the spikes, something that you're generally sort of half-heartedly advised against, because you could skewer yourself and ultimately cause yourself to lose a life. Also, that part can outright go stop existing, because it lulls you into a false sense of security and it's cheap enemy placement. Thankfully, we're to the final stage of the rocket, on the second to last playthrough, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, how I will be handling these special stages, which I brought up earlier. I'm going to be playing the first one, showing you guys sort of a taste of how special stages work. Ultimately culminating in showing that off and then going to the final boss fight. I will, however, be going into the final boss fight blind. Yes, you heard me, blind, because I am a bit of a masochist. Gaming-wise, anyway, not in real life, because that would be weird. Because I don't enjoy pain. Hopefully you guys don't either. But you get to see me get upset. And never having played this final boss, because I haven't cared about completing this game 100% before. You know, coming to the internet. It's because the special stages are not overtly apparent, and if you're new to the game, you're probably gonna have to use a guide to get to them, which is... Yes, I understand that's how you do that, but when you have a definite conclusion to your game that you need to use a guide to, I don't think that's worth it. I don't think you're getting your mileage out of your game. I think you're just angering your fan base. But it's just my opinion on special stages for Sonic games is once you collect the emerald, you should have it. You shouldn't have to finish a level. Thankfully, though, in the world of emulators and save states, I don't have to worry about that. Because, let's face it, its special stages can outright go stop existing. And I try to get that life up because apparently, if you've seen me play this game before, I need it. Which is all too apparent. Now, again, worst segment of the stage, whatever. If you jump off at the right point and you glide, you're able to get onto that sort of platform, but I don't always recommend that. You know, get on it, climb up, and fail, ultimately. This part of the stage can outright go screw itself. I don't like this part of the stage. I think it's idiotic. But thank God it is all over for you, because we move on to the Cosmic Angel Zone, aka the Egg Space Station Part 2. Or Act 2. Thankfully, this part of the stage is a bit shorter because it has a lot of horizontal space with vertical openings. Meaning that if you get to the right point, you can just glide over a ton of the level geometry and just say, screw it! Which I'm ultimately fine with. Because let's face it, we've seen a lot of this level already. And thankfully, we don't have to see it multiple times. Excuse me. I feel like I have a cold almost. Of course, watch out for those horizontal shots because they will mess you up. Because of course, enemies can hit you off screen because that's a thing that people like. And ultimately, you want to take the high road on this stage because frankly, you're able to skip much of the level. Even if it takes you longer through gliding. Now this part of the level is very strange because you encounter these this sort of jump spine sort of thing 3 times in a row, the same thing, and you think, oh, the level's looping, and then you get up to the top of that quarter pipe, and nope, it's not repeating. So, yeah. The rest of this level is fairly straightforward. You went up, just went up. Nope, we're not going on that spring. See, those are the springs I'm talking about, that unless you're the adventurous sort and you enjoy playing through these levels millions of times to try to get to these springs of acquiring Chaos Emeralds, you're not going to want to do it. So I recommend find a guide. Please save yourself some anguish. And interestingly, you can just jump down from this point. I thought you had to go through a booster, but you don't. So that's ultimately helpful. which I like. If a game is helpful like that, and it's designed around being able to, I don't know, be played, I think it's worthwhile. So, innumerable words and places and things. Boss fight. I do this one so many times, and I almost have this down to a science. I can't remember if I one-shot this guy or not. In my one-shot, I mean accomplishing it on my first try. So, we'll just have to wait and see. It'll be a surprise to me, too, because, hey, I had to re-record this part a couple of times because I wasn't satisfied with how the video turned out. So, and this was late in the previous evening, so, hey, you get to see me commentate a game after I've played it very exhausted. And that's always fun. I believe, though, this is a time where I one-shot, or I sort of attempt this guy. Can't quite remember, though. Yep, that's one attempt. Thank goodness we get to see me evolve through playing a darn game. And then onto the X zone. I should say next zone, but it is literally X zone, or zone X, or cross zone, depending on how you want to slice it. It's another little sort of short pause here that I'm going to be skipping over. Here we fight this boss yet again, and jumping into him and gliding through him, ultimately the best strategy for Knuckles. So, thank goodness. Thank goodness, the Sonic 2 boss isn't as difficult with Knuckles because you have a punch that you lean into, which is nice. So, in no time at all, it's over. For you! Ugh. Bad Sonic voice is bad. Anyways, we're getting to the final boss of Zone X, thankfully. And I don't believe this takes me multiple tries, because that would be annoying. Although, if you can see by this video, I lose a couple of times. Of course, there is the same strategy to this boss as every other boss encounter with this guy that we've had. Wait it out, lame it out, ultimately just sort of missed hitting the boss a couple of times because, hey, I'm good at video games. This just proves to the internet that even if I like playing video games and I want to be, you know, good at them, yeah, I can't. But if you do want a damage boost off of that guy, you can hit him a couple of times with Knuckles' glide. Ultimately, though, I still recommend the strategy of laming it out, because this boss can be kind of RNG. See, I thought right there I'd be able to jump over a low shot and bop him on the head. Ultimately, it was a high shot. I don't know how to influence that, so you're not going to see nifty sort of strats from me. Also, I tried to do that damage boost thing again multiple times. There is a point where I decide that it's just sort of wasted on this boss fight, that you should just try to lame it the best you can. And hand, that hand has an abnormally large hitbox where it can just grab you. So if you're like a little bit above it or a little bit below it, it'll just grab you for no reason other than, hey, it's a hitbox. So that's just another reason why this boss fight is frustrating. I believe that's the first time that sort of nonsense has happened to me in fighting this sort of the egg top spinner boss. The egg wait around 1,000,000 times for him to attack favorably boss. Ugh, it's tiring, it's nonsense, and it doesn't mesh in my Sonic game. See, I thought I jumped over that guy. I didn't. looking back at it, and that was probably sleep-deprived issues. So we're going back through this boss fight again. And take 3. And ultimately I end up hitting the boss. Yeah, I am pretty bad at video games. Hopefully I'm not as bad as commentating. Let me know how I'm driving in the comments below. And by driving, I mean speaking. I know I'm not good at video games when I'm trying to play for people, especially when it's a game I haven't played in I don't know how long. But be sure to let me know what you think of this commentary, if you think that it's been good, if you think it's been informative. If you ultimately hate it and dislike it and think I should never commentate on video games again. Let me know in the comments below. Your input is greatly appreciated and occasionally refuted. I don't know. Again, if you have an overly negative opinion, I get it. I have to ramble. I have this gameplay that I want to show you with very limited breaks because to me that's not organic. Which is the ultimate reason why I'm doing a post-commentary in this fashion. So that it still somewhat feels like it belongs, because trying to talk while playing a speed-based game ultimately isn't something I want to do. Especially when in subsequent games in this series, it only gets faster. That's right, it only gets faster. Hui. So, I just sort of have to do this. I have to just sort of commentate. So, just classic strategy of laming out a boss, waiting until he has an easily abusable part of his pattern, and then completely losing the last sort of safety net of my vitality. If I had anything to recommend to pass to me, it's to stand a little bit forward when you're sort of dodging attacks, so that if you get hit, you can still recover the ring. Painful as always. So, try number 4. Oi! Past me, you suck at playing as Knuckles. Although you don't like playing as Knuckles, hey. I think it's better than most. As always, this boss is never a guarantee that you're going to be able to get him done in an orderly or timely fashion. Because he only lets you hit him when he wants to be hit. He attacks you and beats you at this game when he wants to. It's not in your control, and ultimately it's another of that BS waiting that people in video games think it equals difficulty. This isn't hard. This isn't tough. I mean, messing up a mechanic, yeah, that's on my part. But finding jumping over a ball, it's not difficult if you properly space yourself. Oh no, I gotta duck under a laser. This just sort of adds to how boring the boss fights are in this game. Thankfully, they get a bit more dynamic as the series progresses, which I'm glad for. I'm glad that boss fights feel better. I'm glad that they feel good. But these boss fights aren't good. It's just a lot of nonsense waiting. It's even boring me. And I'm sadly running out of points. You know, it's... Other games that do this sort of waiting thing. Legend of Zelda, or at least some of the older ones. Especially the older 3D ones. Where, yeah, the enemies, you have all these really great combat mechanics, but combat in that game is waiting. It's just, when's an opening? Oh, it's now. I'll hit. And now I gotta wait like another 10 seconds for him to put down, for a Stalfos to put down his shield so I can slap him? Why? Thankfully, it's over now. It's all over. We can see that glorious end screen. That glorious, we made it through final! Congratulations! Ugh. took way too long. Ultimately boring. So now while you're treated to this end sequence, yeah, thank you for watching my Knuckles video. I'm sorry it's so long and boring. I promise you the Amy video will not be as nonsense. Hopefully. If it is, I apologize immensely. So, congratulations. See you in the next part. We will be playing as Amy Rose.